Listen, I love journeys. The journeys are what it's all about. I love what people make of themselves with the opportunities that's placed in front of them. It's why many of us watch sports. And in terms of the 22 years I've been covering the NFL and football with the NFL Network, and then obviously the 10-plus year history of this program, I got to tell you, one of my favorite journeys of all time to talk about is Jalen Hurts. And, I mean, there's nothing like it. There's very little like it. And just to, recap, that here's a kid at Alabama in his sophomore season. It's his team. And in the middle of a national championship game, the greatest of all time, the GOAT, and Nick Saban benches him. The whole country watches him. He's got to sit, and he's got to root on his teammate. And Tua Tagovailoa wins the game in overtime. And Jalen Hurts has got to celebrate with his teammates after being benched. And again, not just by anybody. You want to talk about somebody who would know? It's Nick Saban. And what does Jalen Hurts do? He stays. He stays as the backup. And the SEC championship game rolls around the next year, and guess who gets hurt? Tua. Guess who's got to go in and win the game? Hurts. Guess what Hurts does? Goes in and wins the game. Against Georgia. Not just anybody. Yeah. And then guess what happens in the college football playoff? Thanks, Jalen. Appreciate it. Jalen then goes to Oklahoma. Then he transfers. Then it's time to transfer. He does. And what does he do there? Gets himself on the Heisman Trophy podium in Oklahoma. Oh, so it wasn't what he was doing at Alabama. So the kid has some ability. And who did he lose the Heisman Trophy to? Joe Burrow. That's the only guy who beat him.
Yeah, who had maybe the greatest college football season ever.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Okay. And then Hurts gets drafted in the COVID draft. So you're trying to figure out where you're going, who you're talking to. There really is no usual process because we're all shuttered up in a pandemic. He gets drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in the second round, and everyone in Philadelphia is like, why? He just signed Carson Wentz to a new big fat contract. And we find out why, because Carson Wentz is suddenly not very good anymore. But even then, Doug Peterson's like, for some reason, he's like, I'm not playing him. Or the front office didn't want to play. I would love to know what was happening around then. Because the wildest sequence plays out when in week 17 on the final game of the year, when we're watching the Washington football team needing to win this game to make the playoffs, right? The Giants are sitting at home at under 500, need the Eagles to win. And the Eagles bench Jalen Hurts in the fourth quarter and put in Nate Sudfeld. And then Doug Peterson gets fired. And everyone's like, what the hell's going on in Philadelphia? And that's the way Jalen Hurts' professional sports career is starting. It's like, okay, so his coach who won the Super Bowl just a few years ago, he's bounced. Hurts, it's like how many multiple interception games did Wentz have to come up with for Hurts to get a shot? He does. He performs well enough to say he's clearly the guy around here. They bench him in the fourth quarter, the whole country watching. Game 256. And now that guy, Jalen Hurts, is a Super Bowl champion. And not only a Super Bowl champion, the guy who beat him in the Heisman Trophy, he doesn't have a ring. The guy who beat him in the Heisman Trophy and Joe Burrow and Tom Brady, he joined the two of them as the only human beings to ever beat Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game. And he does it in the Super Bowl, in which he's played twice and has been brilliant both times. The first time, you could have made a case that he was the MVP of the game as a losing player. Who says that in this day and age?
That's a fact.
And he leaves the field in that loss amongst the Chiefs confetti and uses that as his home screen to lock his phone for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And stays steady the entire time. The number of times people are like, he's still not all that. He's still not all that. In Philadelphia, You hear it, I'm sure. You hear it everywhere. He's still not all that. And every single time, that's all he does is win. What a journey. What a journey. He's the guy, not Tua, from that night who's won a Super Bowl first. He's the guy from that night who became the first quarterback in 19 quarterbacks. After 18 in a row, went to a Super Bowl, lost it, and never got back. He's the one who broke that. He's the one who stayed resilient enough to break that streak. The last quarterback to lose their first Super Bowl and make it back to a Super Bowl, the last one to do it was Jim Kelly in the 90s. Jalen Hurts did that. Not Tua or Herbert, who was drafted in front of him, or Jordan Love, who he beat in the first round of these playoffs. And in the first game of the season. This guy. Unbelievable journey. And he was asked about that. He mentions his journey all the time. Certainly the number of different coordinators he's had. They changed in Alabama when he was there, and then he changed to Oklahoma, and then he goes to Philadelphia, and the coach gets fired, and then the offensive coordinator leaves for the Colts, and then the other one comes and isn't the right guy, and now Kellen Moore's about to leave. He's the constant. That's what he had to say last night.
It's been a very unprecedented journey, and the journey's, it's always the beginning until it's the end. And I think means a lot. Quantifying all that work over the years, embracing everything, taking every challenge head on, and taking every joy and moment of achievement and success head on as well, and processing them all as one.
He doesn't need to read Inner Excellence because not only does he have it, he talks like a book like that. How about that? Always the beginning and until it's the end. Right. We had a whole segment on Game Day Morning yesterday, by the way, where the guys had to guess, is this quote from Inner Excellence, or did Jalen Hurts say it?
That's really funny.
We did have that. An entire segment. It was a great, fun segment.
That's good. I like that.
And how about this? In terms of anybody who still might not buy it. Because for some reason, you got to figure that that's still out there. You know what I mean? Is he still not bought it, right? His haters. In his first 4 seasons as a primary starter, okay, what Hurts is now completed. So in his first 4 seasons as a primary starter, Patrick Mahomes had 49 regular season wins, 4 playoff appearances, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and 1 Super Bowl win. Okay? Remember, 49 regular season wins.
Okay.
4 playoff appearances, so he went 4 for 4. 2 times made the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl once. In his first 4 seasons full as a starter, Mahomes. Hurts, in his first full 4 seasons as a starter, 45 regular season wins, 4 for 4 in playoff appearances, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win. Same as Mahomes. Same as Mahomes. Jalen Hurts. So there's that. And he joins Montana and Namath, just a couple of other Joes, to have started and starting quarterbacks to win a national championship in college and a Super Bowl as a pro. Jalen Hurts, Joe Namath, Joe Montana. Quarterbacks to have beaten Patrick Mahomes in a playoffs. Tom Brady, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts. Dude is a winner. He tied John Elway for the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in Super Bowl history with 4, trails only Emmitt Smith with 5 as 10 touchdowns. Also became the first quarterback in NFL history with 10 or more career playoff rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts is as good as they get through the first 4 years as a starter, and this is the kid who got benched for the whole country to see, and that's how his narrative was born. And he's like, guess what? I'm still writing it. I love his journey. There's not many like it. And he's a Super Bowl champ. Love it. He's tied Kurt Warner and John Elway for the sixth most offensive touchdowns in Super Bowl history with 7. The only ones with more: Staubach, Bradshaw, Mahomes, Montana, and Brady. I mean, this is some pretty select company, don't you think, guys?
Absolutely. He's great, man. I hope people start talking about him as one of the best in the league. That was one of my topics on Overreaction Monday. Top 5 heading into next year.
You can't argue it. And if you want to, this is what he's got to say in response.
I can't control what these people think, but if it takes all the hate and all the scrutiny and all the different opinions for me to be a world champion, then keep it coming.
Keep it coming. Do you know who has the most rush yards by a quarterback in a Super Bowl game of all time? Jalen Hurts had it last night, 72. Do you know whose record he broke?
His own, right?
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, 71, right?
70 in Super Bowl 57. Yeah. Honestly, that could have broken anybody, right? Hey, you're benched in the national championship game. And then he stuck around. Mm-hmm. And he did nothing until the most important moment against Georgia. And he comes in and he does it. And it's not like, how do you like me now? Or to hell with you. Right? Then he goes to Oklahoma and he damn near wins the Heisman Trophy. The only reason why he didn't, because Joe Burrow had 60 friggin' touchdowns, and that is not an exaggeration. That's an accurate number of what he threw. 60.
Yeah.
And he beats the guy that hardly anybody can beat. And he beats Burrow to the championship podium, and Tua and Herbert and Love and Lamar and Josh Allen. He beats Purdy to the podium. Keep naming guys he beat to the podium.
Everybody.
All right. He's beaten Dak to the podium.
Yeah. Daniel Jones.
Well, I mean, Derek Carr. I mean, you could keep going on with the guys who have been successful in this league. Jared Goff. You know, he beats Goff to the podium. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Wentz could have had another ring last night, and the Eagles denied it.
Guys, Kenny Pickett is a Super Bowl champion.
Kenny Pickett,
show some respect.
Kenny Pickett took the victory formation on this game.
Crazy.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.